The jobs report for Canada is out and it does not look good. So let's get right into it and see exactly what's happened here. So Canada's job market virtually unchanged in December. Unemployment rate remains steady. So let's see what happened here. So Canada's labor market added just 100 jobs in December and the unemployment rate held steady at 5.8% according to Statistics Canada as the economy continues to slow. And I just want to take a pause here for a second and just tell you that December and January, these are the months that are the most manipulated, in my opinion, out of the entire year, because you have so many seasonal workers that are being brought on in December and then they're gone in January, and the government has to do a massive adjustment for that. And I just don't think that they're going to do a good job of doing that. And it's the same thing that happens actually after the summer and in the spring, but it's not as extreme as this. So just bear that in mind. This data incredibly manipulated, but still Canada's labor market just added 100 jobs. I mean, just think about it. We're going to go through how many people were added to the population in that time, especially non-permanent residents. And it's just going to blow your mind and make you realize that these numbers are just completely fake anyway. But we'll get into the breakdown province by province in a second here. Momentum in Canada's labor market ground to a halt at the end of 2023, Desjardins said. Interesting. And if you look at it, what happened on a chart, you can basically see that we had that 0.1k increase in jobs, so 100 jobs. But if you actually go back through the data here and you go to last year, we had 104,000 added, and then we had 150,000 added in January. So January and December were huge months. And like I said, guys, the data of these months, GDP data, unemployment data, I just do not trust it. But anyway, we're going to continue to cover these reports, obviously, as we do each month. Let's see what the banksters are saying in a second. So at the time, the average hourly wage growth for permanent employees increased 5.7% year over year, following an increase of 5% in November, marking the highest growth rate in nearly 2 years. The Bank of Canada has said wage growth in the 4% to 5% range or higher would hinder its efforts to sufficiently cool inflation. So obviously that's going to keep the Bank of Canada hawkish. Now, I believe their metrics and the way they do inflation is completely backward and wrong, but I believe this is actually a good thing, that wages are actually growing. But what I would say here is it's just going to be the top income earners, and it's just going to be concentrated in certain industries and places. So I think it's far from you can just apply the rule. I mean, in fact, just leave me a comment. How much of a rise did you get? Did you get a 5% raise, over a 5% raise year over year in December? Are your wages up more than 5% from December last year? Probably not, unless you're working for the government, of course. So while a further decline in the employment rate is evidence that the labor market continues to weaken, the decline in the participation rate and acceleration in wage growth suggests that it isn't loose enough for the Bank of Canada to cut interest rates quite yet. BMO chief economist Douglas Porter said the sluggish results suggest that the softening seen in the broader economy is finally catching up with the job market. What softening? I mean, these guys have been saying that there is going to be no softening in the economy and everything's going to be fine. So I just don't get it. Do you? They change their tune almost constantly. But yeah, I think the Bank of Canada is going to hold rates right now. I doubt they're going to increase rates. I do think that there's a higher probability that they're cutting before the Federal Reserve. What that does to the currency is going to be probably epic, because if the US economy continues to be more resilient than the Canadian one, which I think is more likely, even though they will enter the same recession, they might be one of the last countries to actually enter it officially. If the Bank of Canada then came in, cut rates, and it's got declining labor market, all kinds of other problems like we have currently, what's going to happen to the currency? Obviously, it doesn't take a brain surgeon to work that out. It's going to go down. So interest rates, a lot of people are going to be talking about this, saying, are they going to cut? Are they going to raise? And I really don't think that this labor market report has changed the equation much. I think the wage growth numbers, they are going to be of concern to the Bank of Canada, whereas I think the opposite to them, they're actually a good thing, even though, like I said, you can't apply that rule to everybody because it's wages growing in certain places. I mean, you just have to look at the median incomes versus the average average incomes in most cities across Canada, and they are wildly different. And the growth rates of those two incomes are wildly different too. I mean, take Calgary, for example, where median household income has practically stagnated now for the past 3 years, yet average household income has gone up. So that basically suggests people at the top earners, yeah, they're making more money, but those middle and lower income workers, they're not making more money. And that's always the way it goes, right? Those people at the top are the ones that feel the recession last, and they've usually adjusted their lifestyle to an extreme as well. So anyway, it's very interesting, and I think that's an interesting note here. So we'll get to the labor report right now from Statistics Canada, so I'll leave a link to this in the description. Unemployment was virtually unchanged. We know that. The employment rate fell 0.2 percentage points to 61.6% as the population aged 15 and older grew by 74,000. I mean, I think that is just a complete understatement. And anyway, when you look at this on a chart, it basically looks like this. So you can see the employment rate is going down, and that is mostly being driven by immigration. So let's see where people were getting laid off and where job gains were happening. So there were more and more people employed in professional, scientific, and technical services. I'm not so sure that those jobs are the ones that are going to be great. Those are the most likely jobs to be replaced by AI and things like that. We're seeing that happen. Google just laid off 33,000 jobs. They just cut 33,000 jobs because of AI. So you've got a gain there of 2.4%. So substantial. Healthcare and social assistance up over 0.5%, just at 0.6%, and other services, which includes personal and repair services, up 1.5% in December. There were declines in 5 industries led by wholesale and retail trade, minus 21,000, and manufacturing minus 1%. So manufacturing and retail, wholesale, and trade, you just would not expect to be declining in December. Yet, you know, I'm going to discuss this more on a live stream Q&A, but I have another indicator, which is like a leading indicator, I believe, that nobody uses, that shows how the economy got significantly weaker in December specifically. And it will probably continue into this month, but I'll update you as the month goes. Okay, so employment increased in 4 provinces in December, led by British Columbia, plus 0.6%, while it declined in Ontario, minus 0.6%. And you got to bear in mind, guys, most of the immigrants, where they going? They're going to Ontario. So, and the labor market getting particularly worse. But you've got to realize that if you look at the report at the end of this video, I'll link the report for November, and you can take a look at that and kind of compare it to this video. But a lot of where job gains were are now being lost. And especially like construction and manufacturing, those were huge job gains for the past couple of months, like November, October. So it's kind of crazy. We're seeing this constant back and forth, even between the provinces. And it just makes you wonder about this data and whether you can actually trust it. So employment up in 4 provinces in December, while Ontario records a decline. Employment rose in British Columbia, plus 0.6%, Nova Scotia, plus 1.3%, Saskatchewan plus 0.8%, and Newfoundland and Labrador, it was up 1% in December. And these have been places, I mean, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, and Labrador particularly, who've been getting hammered and have some of the highest unemployment rates in the country. I think some of them are double digits. So I wouldn't really pay much attention to that as a strong labor market. It's just things don't go down in a straight line, essentially. There was little change in the other provinces. Okay, now I want to show you this chart, which shows where the job gains were versus where the losses were. So you can see where the job gains were: professional, scientific, and technical services, healthcare, other services, public administration, more government, finance, insurance, real estate, rental and leasing, natural resources, slight gain, that's good. Utilities up slightly, education services down, accommodation and food services down. This is just weird though for December when you really think about it. Transportation and warehousing, information, culture and recreation, business, building and other support services, construction, agriculture, manufacturing, wholesale, retail, and trade. I mean, this is just like the complete opposite of what you would think would normally happen in a December report. You'd think wholesale, retail, trade jobs would be exploding, manufacturing would be exploding. Construction kind of makes sense. Yeah, it's just kind of crazy when you think about what's going on. So the unemployment rate remains the same right now at 5.8%. 38%. I have no idea how it remains the same. It just baffles me. But the unemployment rate, you know, all these numbers that come from the government, I have little faith in them at this time of year. And I just use them as kind of an overview of what's going on. It's the same with inflation. I mean, you really have to double that to get anywhere near a realistic number. And what the government comes out with and says is kind of irrelevant because it's what really happens in the real economy that me and you experience that matters. It's not what the government says inflation is and everything like that. When you look at average hourly wages for workers, this chart, it's gone up a lot. You've gone from pre-pandemic 30 to like 35. But the thing is, guys, you have to take these numbers with a grain of salt, right? It's like I said, it's incredibly bifurcated, this economy right now. I mean, just think about all the news over the past couple of years with inflation, which industries have actually seen where they have seen their wages go up dramatically. And that really has not been a thing that has been spread across the entire economy or anything like that, in my opinion. It's been very bifurcated, especially government jobs as well. We're so dependent now on the government for jobs and growth. It's just absolutely crazy. We need to get off this drug of the government because it is absolutely the worst thing, in my opinion. And the labor market obviously continues to deteriorate. And I've actually got another video coming which shows the canary in the coal mine when it comes to the labor market and what's actually happening there. It's way worse than these numbers even suggest. If you've enjoyed this video and you want to see last month's labor report, click this icon right here. If you're looking for a VPN to get around Trudeau's censorship laws, go to expressvpn.com/marketmania. If you're looking for a bank of videos to watch, check out this playlist right here. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. See you in the next one.